Is this the most overlooked driver for speed on the market right now? Today I'm at La Cala in Spain reviewing the new Srixon ZXi driver range. I'm really interested in the new face technology in this driver that I think might make this a contender to go in my bag for this season. So I'm just going to start by hitting the Srixon ZXi standard head. Now what's really interesting with these clubs is they've got a new loft sleeve, so we can change the loft up and down half a degree and also change the lie angle, which I think is brilliant. I think it's basically should be standard now on all adjustable drivers, but being able to change loft and lie independently is brilliant. There's also two weights that you can swap on the head. One's 10 grams, one's 4 grams, and depending on your shot shape bias, you can mess around with those to see if you can get the ball to go a bit straighter. But let me just stick this. I'm going to set this at 9 degrees. I might put it at flat just to stop me snap hooking it. And let's give it a try. So I'm quite interested in the new technology in the face that Srixon have worked on between the last model and this model. I actually used the Srixon ZX driver for a few months at the beginning of this year, and I actually found that I could swing the club really fast. I don't know whether that was the aerodynamics. They do have a slightly shallow face, but I was able to swing it quite quickly and produce some good numbers. And I actually quite like that this head is still titanium. It's got a titanium face. I like the feedback that gives me. I know most brands have moved towards carbon, but actually I like the feedback this gives. I think you know when you've hit it good, you know when you've hit it bad, and it just gives you better feedback off the face. But let's hit a couple and see how it goes. So 9 degrees, set to flat. First impressions, I do like the shallow face. I think that sort of confidence inspiring makes you feel like you're going to hit it a bit higher. Srixon always have quite a classic shape. It's maybe slightly elongated from last year, but actually I think it looks really good behind the ball. I like the little alignment edge. That's just going to help me get the club lined up straight, and it does have this sort of almost like lumpy. Srixon wouldn't want me to use the word lumpy, so I'll say textured. It's got this nice textured finish on the top, which probably has something to do with the aerodynamics, but I think it makes the club look fast, which is exactly what we want from a new driver. Okay, first hit. Oh yeah, end the video there. That was great. Now, don't know if I hit that perfectly, but it's sort of gone with a 3-yard draw straight at the tree I was aiming at. Now the head in the swing, it feels fast. Like I find that Srixon heads, they feel almost a little bit lighter than maybe a Callaway or a TaylorMade, which I personally prefer because it feels like I can swing it a bit faster. I really like how that felt off the face. It did feel like it maybe spun a little bit, but we can get into the details of the shot a little bit later. But all in all, that was a pretty good shot. I'm really pleased with how it went and where it finished. So the big tech story in these new drivers is the new face. So very specifically, Srixon have got this new variable thickness face, which they've not done to this degree before, and that's made the center of the face even thinner, which is definitely going to give us more ball speed. And also they've contoured the back of the face so that miss hits still perform well. We've seen this technology in other brands over the past couple of years, and Srixon are jumping on that, but we've got a really thin titanium face, which is just going to give us max speed. All right, let's hit another one. Oh yeah, that sounded pretty good. That was definitely a better hit, probably a bit stronger. It's quite a high-pitched sound, so I quite like it. It sounds a bit more classic to me. But if you're used to like the carbon face sound, then this is going to be slightly different. But I mean, it feels really solid from the face. I've hit both of those shots somewhere near the middle, the second one a bit better than the first, but it feels quite meaty, even though the head feels quite light when you're swinging it, and I really like that. Another interesting thing that Srixon have done this year that they didn't do last year is the faces now have laser face milling. Now that's something that you might be more used to on wedges to help you gain spin, but what Srixon are saying this does is it actually helps you stabilize spin. So normally a toe strike would spin a lot less and maybe dip out the sky, but these new mills, I mean, they're only very small, but are going to help the ball spin a bit more consistently all across the face. So what we're going to end up with is just more playable golf shots, more shots in the fairway, which is going to help you score better. All right, last one with the standard head. Although that last one was pretty good. We are just seeing the spin a little bit too high for like optimal, but that last one was a pretty, 270 through the air, so can't really complain. That one's a bit blocked. but I mean, it's still in the fairway, so I'm not going to be too picky. Speed, clubhead speeds remained about the same. The ball speed's pretty good, in the low 160, so I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with how that feels, but now let's move into that low spin head, see if that drops a spin for me, gives me a few more yards. That's the head that you're going to see the Srixon Tour players using this year, so I'm really interested to see how that goes. Okay, so moving into the ZXi LS driver, straight away we see a different sole. So we still have a heavy and a lightweight. Instead of being on the heel and the toe to change your ball flight from draws to fades or fades to draws, we've now got them on the back and the front of the head, which is just going to allow you to change launch and change spin quite dramatically. So I've got the heavyweight set at the front, which should give me lowest launch and lowest spin. So going off the numbers we had in the standard head, I think this is going to suit me a little bit better. The other thing we see in this head is it's probably a little bit shorter front to back, which is a bit more classic, that round shape. Srixon will have used quite a lot of tour player feedback when designing this head, because generally the tour heads they're not smaller in terms of, they're still 460cc, but they are just slightly smaller in profile, because the players will feel like they can work the ball a little bit more in the hands and in the shape of the shot that's required. Okay, so first hit. Now, again, I really like the way this sits. So it's a very classic shape. It looks good behind the ball. I'm a big fan of matte black. I don't really like the glare, even though that's what we always had back in the day. The matte black's a really nice touch. It sort of looks stealthy, it looks fast, and I'm hoping we're gonna get this going a little bit lower spin. I've still got this on 9 degrees, just for a fair comparison to the other heads. Oh, wow, that sounded way different. Yeah, so I turned that one over quite dramatically. Maybe I need to put it back on flat. Okay, so I've just flattened it because that went way left. I did have the other one on flat, so that's my mistake. Now that sounded really strange. That was a much sort of higher pitched, tinnier sound compared to the core head. Not for the better, I wouldn't have said, but let's hit another one, see if it sounds any different. Yeah, I mean, it does sound a lot different, doesn't it, that? Definitely flatter flight. It's got a little bit more run just visually to the eye. It's not carried quite as far. So there's some new technology in the crown as well on these new ZXi drivers. So the crown is even thinner than it ever has been, which has made the crown of the club really light, which has allowed Srixon to redistribute the weight around the head to more optimize it for distance. What you don't want in a driver is the center of gravity too high, because it generally makes the ball launch really low and not perform. So taking weight out of the head, adding it to the sole, and then moving it forward and back depending on the player is the right way to go. Right, come on, let's see if I can hit one properly. Although those other two weren't bad hits, they're just not quite right. Yeah, I think that was it. That was a proper shot. So that was a perfect draw. Fit that really nicely. I think that's gone a bit further. So yeah, so that's the longest one I've hit so far, and that was really what I was trying to do, obviously. So bit of a jump in ball speed, bit of a decrease in the spin rate, and this just goes to show why human testing is harder than robot testing, because I'm just not that good. But I'm really pleased with those numbers. We'll get to that later, but that's worthwhile considering for gamer, that shot. And it'll be really interesting to see how those numbers compare to the core head, the standard head, and also then to the max head. So final head is the ZXi MAX driver. So this is Srixon's highest MOI driver, their most forgiving club, which they think is going to suit a player who wants more spin and isn't as worried about the distance, but wants to hit more fairways. So straight away, this club looks visually different. So it doesn't have any adjustable weight, sort of front or back and left and right. It's got just one really big heavy weight at the back, which drags the center of gravity back, helps it launch a bit higher and spin a bit more. The other thing you see with this driver is, although these heads I think are pretty much they are pretty much identical behind the ball, I do think we are seeing maybe a slightly longer front to back, maybe a slightly shallower face, all things that are just going to help you hit the ball higher and get the ball in the air a bit more. So this isn't the club that I would normally try or gravitate towards. I don't need any help spinning it, but it's good to hit just to compare all three. And I think the numbers will be pretty different to the other two, but let's give it a go. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that was necky. So a great test of its MOI. Yeah, not gone as far, definitely spun a little bit more. It's doing everything that it should. Launched a bit higher. This driver isn't like your maximum distance driver. It's still going to go far. It's still got all the same technology as the other two heads, the thin face, the light crown, the rebound frame, which Srixon have stuck with for these heads as well as the previous ones. But this is just going to be easier to hit for slower swing speeds. You're going to find more fairways for any swing speed. This is going to be like, this is your driver that's the equivalent to the TaylorMade Max or the Callaway Max. It's the easiest to hit, highest MOI that Srixon offer, and it's just going to help you get the ball in play more often. Again, I really like the way that these feel in the swing. I think the heads on the Srixon clubs feel much lighter than the other brands, and I think that helps me feel like I can go a bit quicker at it. Oh, another poor strike. I'm really making the most of the MOI. That one's gone a bit shorter, but that again, this is me, not the club. Come on, idiot. So both of those have been a bit low heel, but again, they're both very straight. I mean, I've not hit either of those that far offline. They're not going to be in the trees. They're not going to be lost balls. Where if I'd have hit one of those poor necky strikes with maybe the low spin or the core head, I might be seeing a bit more bother. And that's where you've got to think about which is the right driver head for you. What's your strike like? Are you covering the face heel to toe in your round because you're a little bit inconsistent? Well, then you probably suit the higher MOI max head more than you do the low spin. You might be better off giving up 5 or 10 yards for more fairways, because courses that we play at, the rough's long, the trees are there, and if you're hacking out sideways, that's a waste of a shot. So sometimes fairways can be worth more than distance, depending on where you play. All right, last one. Let's do this driver some justice. Bit of a high toe, but a bit more launched. I'll tell you what, it does feel really good from all parts of the face. That one was particularly toey, the other two were a bit low heel, but actually off the toe, that one's gone quite a long way. Certainly up there with the other, certainly the core head, not quite as long as my longest, but it's still up there. But amazingly, I've not found the center, but I'm down the fairway on all 3 of those shots. And ultimately, that's what this club is for. It's easy to hit, it's really forgiving, and it should be worth trying. You should get out and try this if you're in the market for a new driver and you want to get away from those major brands. This is quite a fast driver, the face is thin, it's going to perform well, so get out and hit it. But let's go look at the data now to see what truly was better and what truly I think of the driver. So just diving into the numbers here, what we see is a pretty similar performance across all 3 drivers in terms of ball speed. So the standard head was 161, the low spin head was 163, and the max head 159. The big thing here is the spin rate. So the spin on the max was up there at 3,300, and on the low spin 2,900. So you can see quite 400 RPMs of spins, quite a lot of distance, and you can see that actually that works out about 12 yards of carry. So that's quite a big jump from most forgiving head, highest spin, to sort of least forgiving, lowest spin, but fastest. Now I really like that low spin head. I think if I was custom fit and I had the right shaft, we'd be able to get that spin from 2,900 down to 2,500, and I might gain another 12 yards of carry, which would be pretty good. If I could be stood there knowing that I was going to carry the ball, you know, nearly 280, I'd be pretty satisfied. I do think that these drivers are worth getting out and testing if you're in the market for a new driver. The combination of the head feeling quite light, as well as a new thinner face, is going to produce more speed. And I do think if you're moving from an older driver into the new ZXi series, you are going to see a distance gain, and the technology is really interesting, so you should get out and try these.